Hello and welcome. I'm Rawia Alami and this is the Dailies, where we take a look at important news stories, reports, analysis and articles published in newspapers and media outlets across the world. As expected, all newspapers continue to cover the Israel-Iran war in its sixth day, with a special focus on the changing American stance regarding the U.S.'s involvement in the war. Some viewed that change as an indication that President Trump recognized that distancing the U.S. from Israel's actions could undermine American credibility and leverage, especially after Israel's strikes proved effective, as well as a reflection of the U.S.'s desire to maintain its influence and avoid appearing weak both to allies and adversaries. Let's start with the Washington Post, whose editorial talked about this very issue, U.S.'s direct involvement in the Israel-Iran war. The editorial board notes that Iran's plan is unclear, especially about U.S. participation. President Trump is urged to be cautious about joining the war directly, as U.S. involvement could have serious consequences, such as dragging America into another long Middle East conflict, risking unpredictable outcomes, and also possibly leading to chaos in Iran. The piece also warns that while U.S. support for Israel's defense is likely, direct military action could destabilize the region and make peace talks much harder. The piece also concludes that regime change in Iran is risky and urges clear thinking about what comes next. The Wall Street Journal's editorial took a slightly different stand on this, saying that U.S. involvement is an opportunity for the president to reverse Biden's shameful Afghan legacy. The editorial highlights President Trump's crucial decision whether to help Israel eliminate Iran's nuclear threat and restore America's global deterrence, or risk repeating the perceived failures of the Biden administration. The author argues that U.S. involvement providing bombs and bombers to destroy Iran's buried nuclear sites could decisively end the conflict and send a strong message to adversaries like China and Russia. However, the article also warns that aiding Israel could invite Iranian retaliation against U.S. forces, potentially expanding the war. The article concludes that the world is watching closely, as Trump's choice will signal whether American deterrence is strong or weak and could shape perceptions of U.S. resolve far beyond the Middle East. Eric Brewer published an analysis in Foreign Policy saying that Israel's recent strikes on Iran's nuclear program could backfire and increase the risk of Iran building a nuclear weapon. Brewer, by the way, is Deputy Vice President for the Nuclear Threat Initiative's Nuclear Material Security Program, and the analysis highlights that before the attacks, there was no evidence that Iran was rushing to make a bomb, and U.S. intelligence believed Iran's leaders had not authorized the nuclear weapons program since 2003. The Israeli strikes damaged above-ground equipment at Natanz, but the Deep Fordo facility remains intact and operational. The author warns that these attacks may push Iran to rebuild its program secretly, making monitoring much harder. Iran could indeed leave the nuclear treaty and block inspectors, especially if it feels threatened. The piece also concludes that while Israel's attacks set back Iran's program, they may have increased the danger of Iran eventually developing nuclear weapons. The Guardian published an analysis saying that based on American military movements, the U.S. could indeed be preparing to attack Iran's Fordo nuclear site. The article highlights that the U.S. has sent refueling aircraft east, which could support B-2 bombers needed for a long-range strike. Only the U.S. has the massive bunker buster bomb needed to destroy Fordo, buried deep underground. B-2 bombers, which can carry these bombs, have been seen at Diego Garcia close to Iran, and the analysis indeed quotes experts who say attacking Fordo would require several bombs and more than one bomber. Israel has attacked other sites, but not damaged Fordo so far. The piece concludes that the U.S. is keeping its options open, with President Trump saying he wants a real end to the conflict, not just a ceasefire. The U.S. military build-up hints at possible direct involvement in the Israel-Iran war. The New York Times published a report explaining why Russia is standing aside as Israel attacks despite close ties with Iran. The article highlights that despite Russia's close ties with Iran, including a new strategic partnership and Iran's supply of military drones for Russia's war in Ukraine, Moscow is not coming to Tehran's aid as Israel attacks Iranian nuclear and energy sites. Now, analysts say Russia is prioritizing its own war in Ukraine and its relationship with Gulf states, which do not want a stronger Iran. Now, Russia has made phone calls and issued condemnations, but is not providing military support. The Kremlin is positioning itself as a mediator, hoping to stay relevant in global diplomacy. Experts warn that Russia's inaction could indeed weaken its influence in the Middle East, even as it tries to balance ties with Iran, Israel, and the United States. And we'll stay with the New York Times, which published a report about Israel's secretive but advanced nuclear weapons program, which the country neither confirms nor denies. According to the report, experts estimate Israel has at least 90 nuclear warheads and enough material for up to 200, making it one of the 9 nuclear-armed nations. Israel is not a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, unlike Iran, and would have to give up its arsenal to join it. Now, the Dimona facility, built in the late 1950s with French help, is believed to be the center of Israel's nuclear program. The report notes that Israel has never used nuclear weapons in war, though it reportedly prepared them during past conflicts. The piece concludes that Israel's policy of ambiguity remains a key part of its security strategy, even as it criticizes Iran's nuclear ambitions. Roger Boyes wrote in The Times asking who will rule Iran if the Ayatollahs are ousted. The article highlights that neither the US nor Israel aims to directly replace Iran's leadership, but both hope for a new one as well. More open government in Iran. The author suggests that a US military strike would have a greater impact than an Israeli one, possibly creating a window for political change in Iran. However, the article notes that Iran's opposition is fragmented, but suggests that a new leader might emerge from within Iran. Possibly a reformer, a student activist, or even a modernizing figure from the Revolutionary Guard. The piece draws also parallels to Syria, where a new leader quickly took power after the old regime fell. It concludes that while regime collapse would bring chaos, it also offers a chance for fresh leadership if a unifying figure can rally workers, farmers, and students and work with moderate elements of the old system. The Financial Times published an explainer on whether the strikes on Iran could cause a nuclear disaster. The article highlights fears of radiation and chemical contamination after Israel airstrikes on Iran's nuclear site. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, warns that attacks on nuclear facilities are dangerous and raise the risk of radiological release. Now, the explainer also includes a map of the different nuclear sites in Iran. As you can see, marked in the yellow, these are the known sites that we know about: Natanz, Fordo, Arak, Esfahan, and Bushehr. And the ones marked in blue are the ones that are undeclared sites. Now, so far, radiation levels outside the Natanz and Esfahan facilities are quite normal, but some contamination is found inside. Experts say uranium is only a big danger if it undergoes a nuclear reaction, which has not happened here. The IAEA says attacks on peaceful nuclear sites break international law. And the article concludes that for now, the public is safe, but continued attacks could increase the danger. And we'll end with Israel Hayom, which published a report highlighting the growing concerns over Israel's missile defense system during its conflict with Iran. U.S. officials warn that Israel is running low on arrow interceptors, which are vital for stopping Iranian long-range missiles. This shortage alarms Washington, as it could leave Israel vulnerable if attacks continue. The Pentagon has sent more missile defense equipment to help, but experts say neither Israel nor the U.S. can keep intercepting missiles forever. They urge quick action to solve the interceptor shortage. The Israel also Defense Forces say they are ready for any scenario, but won't comment on munitions. The article notes that U.S. support, including the THAAD system, has indeed boosted Israel's defenses, but the high pace of missile attack is straining supplies. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.